Hello, everyone, and welcome to Computer Applications and Business Web Development. In today's lesson, what I am going to show you is how to code the structure of the content of a web page. So, the first thing you need to know when you start programming or building websites is really understanding how to structure the contents or the elements of a web page to really meet the needs for what it is that you are trying to develop. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what we need to do to get started on a lot of this. So, the first thing I want you to remember is in the previous video, I actually showed you how to get started. And what I essentially showed you was the tools that you could download for effective web development. So here I have what is known as a my Notepad++. So it's one of the text editors that I am going to be using to get started utilizing this building my code in HTML. As you know, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is used to define the content and structure of a web page. So let's take a look at what we need to do before we can get started. So the first thing that I highly recommend that we always do is I'm going to create a folder. So I'm going to right click on my computer, go to new, specify the folder, and I'm going to call this web development. Right? And inside of this folder is where my document is going to go. So the first thing you need to do when you are structuring the content of a web page is you want to make sure that it's presentable, legible, and readable by your users. So I'm going to declare my document, which is going to be a doc type, HTML, right? And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a language, HTML lang equals English. That's the language that we are using. And then I'm going to tab in my next element, right? And the reason I'm tabbing in this next element is because you want to make sure when you're structuring the content that it's neat and presentable. However, keep in mind that it doesn't really matter. Tabbing is not going to affect your code. You could write all the code in one line and it will still work perfectly fine. But the key thing you want to keep in mind is we're talking about structuring the code, the presentation, and how it looks. So that way it's easier to change, it's easier to navigate, and it's easier to fix. So here I have an open tag, just like we learned in previous lectures. And here I have what is known as a close tag in my head. From here, I'm going to do a meta char set, which is my meta character set equals UTF 8, which is the unified code or text that's going to be utilized, which is really relevant for the server. And the title of this is going to be web development. All right. And I'm going to close it. Again, every tag that opens needs to close. So here's my open tag and here is my close tag. And I know it's closed because I have a slash here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Save As. In order to save this, I'm going to go to my desktop and I am going to look for the new folder that I just created called Web Development, right? So here's my Web Development folder, and I'm going to save this as web.html, right? Once I save it as web.html, you're going to notice that I now have most of the things that I need to get situated for my HTML. Again, all we're doing here is basic HTML. Then I'm going to have a body, right? Sorry, you definitely want to have a body that is open, and then I'm going to close my body. The key thing to keep in mind is everything that is in your body is what will appear or show on your page. So the open tag for each element consists of the element name surrounded by an angle bracket. So the element name, which is my body, surrounded by an angle bracket. Same here, element name is head, surrounded by an angle bracket, okay? A forward slash, so when you put a forward slash, the element name in the right angle bracket is where you're essentially saying that it is going to close and not show up. All right. So that is how we kind of get started with the structure. Then I'm going to close my HTML tag here so that way it can close at the top. And what I like to do when we're talking about structuring the content, I'm going to tab the body into the middle. So that way I know everything that goes in this section here is what's going to appear. And these elements are my most outer elements, meaning that nothing should go outside of the body. So that way I know as I'm coding exactly what should appear on my page. All right. From here, I'm going to do an H1 tag, which is a header element, and I'm going to write web development, and then I'm going to close my H1 tag. Okay. So your H1 tag essentially is a header. So if I was to run my page right now and launch it in Chrome, or actually let's run it and launch it in Firefox. Okay, Chrome's fine also. You will see something like this, right? So here is my H1 tag, and here is my web development tab as my title. So that is how we can kind of see exactly what is happening here. Most importantly, if I go into my web development folder, you will notice that I have web. I have the little web icon showing me exactly what is supposed to appear here for me to see. Okay. So the next thing is, again, many elements can be coded with attributes that essentially identify the element and define the way the content is displayed. So let me give you an example of an element that actually does exactly that. In my web development section, okay, I am going to show you how that goes. All right. And what I'm going to do here next is I'm going to create a new folder, and that new folder is going to be called IMG for images. All right. So that is essentially how you structure the content of an HTML page to get it started. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to write a paragraph. And what I like to do is put placeholders in my paragraph. So I'm going to look up some lorem imposium, which is basically text that's already generated. And I can, go to the generator so it can generate some for me, similar to this here. I'm going to just copy this, right? And I'm going to add it in my P, which is my paragraph tag. All right. Again, these are just placeholders for me to kind of know exactly what is going to appear here. Again, since let's go back, copy, paste. Let's bring this down. Again, I'm just pressing enter so that way they can all appear on the line so we could see exactly what it is that we're supposed to see here. Okay. So right now, let's zoom out a little bit. Here is my text or my paragraph, so to speak, based on the way that I want it to appear. Again, for you, you would definitely write information here, but since this is just a demonstration, I'm showing you exactly what it's supposed to look like. All right. So if I go back here and I refresh my page, you're going to notice that I now have, let's reset it to 100, my information here that's demonstrating or showing something. And I'll add one more just so we can fill up the page. Again, all I'm doing here right now is we're writing what is known as paragraphs. So these are paragraph tags. So that is all that there is to structuring the content of an HTML page. And the reason you do it like this is so that way it's easy to know exactly what you are seeing. So I have my HTML, my head tag, my body tag, my H1, which is for my header, my P, which is for my paragraph, and I close my body. Then I close my HTML tag at the beginning, similar to how you see it here. And then the structure is, if you look at this, information that goes in that's not going to affect my page is indented in, so that way I can structure the content exactly how I would like to see it. Thank you for watching.